what's one skill that people could use in the real world to help them transform their life?
Validation. So and validation is a set of skills, really. So you learn as a clinician, you're trained in these skills to help you communicate acceptance, to help you help another person feel seen
Mm,
and heard. This is very important if you want to get people to listen to you and to collaborate with you and to work with you. Okay. And there's a science to this. Like, we've researched what is the most effective way. How can you signal acceptance? And as therapists, you're trained in this method. Um, these specific skills were developed for a treatment called dialectical behavior therapy, DBT, which is a specific treatment for folks who have a condition known as borderline personality disorder. Okay. Often characterized by self harm and suicidal behavior. So serious stuff. But here's the thing, I found myself, however old I was, getting my PhD in psychology, studying this very specific treatment, and finally being introduced to these skills that I'm thinking, why isn't this in grade school? Like, why aren't these skills taught in, K through 5? Why am I just hearing about this now? And like, this is the path it took for me to get this information. And I mean, not only was it immediately apparent that these skills helped patients and improved, were critical to doing therapy well.
is this you learning how to validate
This is
patients?
me learning how to validate patients.
Because if you don't validate a patient, they're not going to trust and believe you what you're saying. They're going to feel unseen, unheard, like you don't understand them.
Yeah,
So I'm just going to keep living in this world of no one gets me. Even my therapist doesn't understand
of
me.
course. Yeah,
So why would I trust and listen to what they're saying and
that's
take action on the tools that you're sharing with me?
that's right.
Interesting.
It's even a little further than that. So prior to DBT, we had this real focus in psychology on change. Everything was, behaviorism,
Uh-huh.
cognitive behaviorism, which focuses on changing your behavior, changing your thoughts. And that's great for folks who are change focused, believe in their capacity for change, and are willing to do what you suggest. Okay. If you've ever raised an adolescent or just been in a relationship with somebody where you feel like nothing's working, you know that feeling of like, there are times when that approach just doesn't work. And so for the longest time, we didn't have treatments that worked for folks who were what we called treatment resistant. Um, and the discovery, the fascinating insight was that if you want to help people make profound changes, you need to help them feel deeply accepted.
Really? What if
Yes.
there's someone that you don't understand because you don't think the way they think? They have completely opposite viewpoints, or they're extreme borderline bipolar or extreme personality disorder. They're suicidal,
Hmm.
and you don't understand that.
Hmm.
How can you validate someone that you don't understand?
So the skills that we learn, you start out with just a couple that basically signal engagement, that help me engage and help me listen in a way that will foster understanding and empathy.
Hmm.
Okay. But here's the thing, I don't have to validate the entirety of someone's experience.
Okay.
So when I'm working with, say, a schizophrenic client, someone who literally is seeing and hearing things that are not there, and this person is reacting to me as though I'm a threat, I'm trying to kill them or something, and I'm not. I don't agree with those thoughts, not by any stretch of the imagination. That is not valid. However, the feeling of fear
Mm.
and the desire to protect themselves, given what they're thinking, makes sense. I can validate that. I can go a step further and say, would you feel more comfortable recording this conversation?
Hmm.
Because I understand that you don't trust me right now. And if I wasn't feeling trust towards the person I was talking to, I might want some recording so I could go back to it.
To make
I'm
someone more safe feeling.
right. I'm not saying I agree with your thoughts, but I see the validity in your feeling and I can attend to that. Does that make sense? So like, that is critical because what we tend to focus on is behavior that we don't like, we don't agree with, and we fail to attend to the valid emotions
Mm.
behind it.
What would you say then is the step-by-step process for making someone feel seen and validated?
Okay. It is it the model I use is called the validation ladder, and it includes 8 skills.
Okay.
And I won't go through them all, but essentially validation conveys mindfulness, understanding, and empathy in a way that makes the other person feel accepted. So at the bare minimum, if I don't understand or empathize with someone, all I can do is be mindful and engaged. And to be mindful, you need to project non-judgment. So it's not just listening, okay? Because people can tell when you are listening and coming up with your rebuttal and your counter argument or your judgments. So you have to listen in such a way that projects curiosity. And we know how to do that. All right. You use specific nonverbals and you play this little game in your head, which is amazing and super effective. You want me to talk about it?
Yeah.
Oh, kind of embarrassed. Okay. So a little therapist trick, but it's how we attend. If I'm sitting across from someone and you're talking to me, the game I'm playing in my head is to solve or figure out this kind of 2-part riddle. What's your point? Why do you care about it? And how do I improve upon it? How could I crystallize that argument better? I'm giving you the benefit of the doubt that you're just thinking on your feet and you're throwing all this together. So in my mind, I'm thinking, just how do I make this point better than you're making it now? It's kind of like when you're in a debate and you have to argue a position you don't necessarily agree with, right? Like why you should smoke. And you're just your job is just to kind of formulate the best argument you can. That's essentially what you're doing. So you start asking questions to try and understand their position better. And you're just tweaking it and tweaking it. If you watch great interviewers, like late night hosts, you'll see, you can see them playing a version of this game. They're trying to pull out the best interview they can. Doesn't necessarily mean that they agree with what the other person is saying or whatever. They're just trying to crystallize that message. And that informs how they listen and then the questions they ask. And without fail, there's a sense of genuine curiosity there because it's genuinely there.
Yeah. But if there's someone that you're working with,
Sure.
whether it's an elite executive or someone who's suicidal, and they're trying to make a point, in your mind, you know that's not what they need to be thinking about. It's actually hurting them or blocking them from creating what they want.
Sure.
How do you play the game of validating their point when you know it's hurting them, or it's a false belief around something, or it's not the truth that's going to support them and setting them free emotionally, psychologically? How do you play that game and then empower them to think a different way?
Okay, so as I'm playing that game, I'm just asking at this level, it's just kind of mindful awareness that I'm projecting here. And as I'm listening, I am hearing the emotion. I am starting to make connections in my head. I am looking for what is the kernel of truth in what this person is saying? Where is this coming from? What is the feeling behind this? What function does this behavior serve? With suicidality, it's often relief from pain. All right. If they had a way to relieve pain, they would take it. And this is the only option they see. Okay. I don't agree with that. But importantly, validation does not require agreement. I'm a vegetarian, but I could validate why somebody would choose to eat meat. That doesn't mean I agree with them. I just see the validity in their argument. And I can focus on that instead of the part that I disagree with. And importantly, if I focus on that first, the conversation around perhaps changing their opinion is much more likely to be successful.
So validate their point first.
Validate the valid, yeah.
And then if you're trying to influence or persuade to seeing something differently, how do you move them in that direction?
That's when I pivot to more like behavioral stuff, okay? So that would be, we have all sorts of reinforcement, shaping that we do to try and kind of nudge the person in the other direction. But the interesting thing is the person will just be more receptive to you. You're curious, they absorb that curiosity. So one of the other mindfulness skills we use here, there's that attending one, and then there's copying, which sounds so weird. But let me tell you, if you are like up at night, you can't sleep, Google the research on mimicry or copying. It is fascinating stuff. like simply copying another person's body
Uh-huh.
language. Okay.
Does it get too weird if you're copying everything
It
though?
does. It
Like I
does.
scratch, you scratch. I switch my feet, you switch
Yeah,
your
it
feet.
does.
I shift, you shift.
It would, but here's the thing. So as soon as that, if we were talking and I was starting to feel like, ooh, this isn't going well, I would in my head just say like copy. I'm not going to be too, drilled in, but I just give like myself a message copy
For you to copy
for me
me?
to copy you.
Okay.
I just tell myself copy. And I slowly start to assume a similar position.
Yeah.
Okay. And I'm intentionally doing that because I'm trying to attune to you.
Mm.
And this isn't me just being weird. Doing this activates mirror neurons, wherein, as a result of copying your expression and your body language, I will start to feel, I will start to taste some of what you are experiencing.
Mm.
All right. That is how mirror neurons function.
Mm.
We are designed to copy. Babies mimic the facial expressions of people, of their parents and caregivers. When we're attracted to people, or we want to impress them, or we like them, we naturally copy them.
Mm-hmm.
When we sense threat, we tend to close up. And interestingly, those are the moments, oftentimes, conflict, right? Where connection would serve you best.
Mm.
It's just not what we're wired to
Gosh.
do.
Yeah, because we're in the defense.
That's right.
We're guarding, protective. So copying is it similar to mirroring or mimicking?
Mirroring, and
Uh,
mimicking.
what is the science behind copying or mirroring that shows you how much more influential you can be in any relationship?
Oh my gosh. So trying to think of some of these really quirky studies. They looked at, for instance, when waiters simply repeat back an order, compared to those who don't, they get a 25% higher tip on average,
Mm-hmm.
right? Copying increases altruistic behavior towards the person who did the copying. It also overcomes implicit racism.
Mm.
So they have ways of measuring kind of subtle forms of racism that you're not even aware of. They'll give you an assessment to measure that. And then they'll have you copy someone of the opposite race,
Mm-hmm.
copy their movements in a video or something, and then they'll measure it again. And that implicit racism has significantly decreased.
Wow. Just by copying.
Just by copying. Yeah. So this is what I'm saying about how you use these entry skills to cultivate more understanding and empathy. And that is how you move to higher levels of validation. Because my full-time job is working with people who are saying, doing, and believing things that are distorted to the extent of being pathological.
Can you give me an example of what someone might say? You don't have to say who or
Sure.
what it was
Sure.
exactly, but an example of a distorted belief.
Well, Caroline, it's clear. I guess this is done. I guess we're not working together anymore. Me saying, I'm sorry, what happened? I emailed you yesterday. You didn't respond? Didn't respond to me? Oh, I'm so sorry. I had so many. Immediately, I'm getting defensive, right? I am so sorry. I had so many. You know that I self-harm.
Wow.
You don't care. You don't care. You think this is fun. You think this is fun. Just really kind of.
Wow. Ramping it up, taking it to a
Ramping it up.
whole nother level. It's like a different world in their mind, right?
It is. And in my heart, I'm feeling responsible for what's going on
For them
here.
harming themselves mentally, potentially physically. Wow.
And then like, I need to get this under control. So it's those types of situations. And if these skills work in those situations, their potential when the stakes are much lower and folks are much more rational is significantly
Yeah,
greater.
when someone's more receptive,
Exactly.
you know, less aggressive or less like, or just in the same world as you,
Yeah.
mentally,
Yes.
emotionally.
Yes. I mean, it's much easier.
Interesting. But if someone's extremely combative or in a completely different world like that, how do you walk them off the edge? I mean, not physically, but
Yeah,
how do you walk
sometimes.
them off the edge, I guess, pull them back into a place of like getting back into a reality? Or is that not even possible for some people?
There's a lot of different things that go into that. At that point, what I would start doing genuinely is actually to copy back. Okay, so let me get this right. I want to make sure I've got this. You emailed me yesterday from your perspective, this should have been a signal to me that you were in crisis.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Okay. And I need to be careful not to say that wasn't in your email. Just like, so right now, I got it. You're feeling like I totally betrayed you, like I'm intentionally trying to hurt you. Oh my gosh. Okay, I see. Oh, I'm so sorry you feel that way. Oh my gosh. That is no. That is not what happened. Not from my can I share my perspective?
Mm.
It's okay if you don't want me to, because that could sound offensive. But I really it hurts my heart that there was this miscommunication.
But doesn't that feel like you have to walk on eggshells?
Yeah, a little. I mean,
If that's the real world, maybe with a patient who's personality disorder, but
no, because I am seeing like that's their world, that's their perspective. I do see that.
right.
I'm not saying anything I don't believe.
Uh-huh.
Now, here's the thing. It's acceptance and change, not acceptance or change.
Mm.
They are two sides of the same coin. So I can validate, and then once I see that that has resonated, I switch gears.
Okay.
But let's look at this for a second. If you keep responding to people in this way when they miss a message from you, I'm worried you're going to start burning people out. Because the other thing I felt just now was attacked and scared,
Mm-hmm.
and not in a good way. All right. Is there anything we could have done, do you think, that could have brought down the intensity just a little bit so you could give me that message, but not, make me want to hide under the couch?
Wow.
Right. So that's it.
Yeah.
That's that combination. You see how I'm going from validation
Sure.
to change,
Interesting.
right?
Okay. Thank you for watching this video. If you want more inspiring clips like this, make sure to click right here to subscribe and click right here to watch that next video that is specific to support you in your life.